كثيرة. الأستاذ الدكتور سيد خليفة نقيب الزراعيين، الأمين العام لاتحاد المهندسين الزراعيين الأفارقة، أهلا بيك يا فندم. والأستاذ الدكتور علي أبو السبع، مدير عام المركز الدولي للبحوث الزراعية في المناطق الجافة والمدير الإقليمي CGIAR في غرب وجنوب آسيا. أهلا بحضرتك يا فندم. دكتور محمود، اتفضل حضرتك، وبعدين نسمع الدكتور اسماعيل. اتفضل يا فندم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي الأستاذ دكتور محمود المتيني رئيس جامعة عين شمس، معالي الوزير الأستاذ دكتور عادل بلتاجي وزير الزراعة الأسبق وصاحب الفضل في تنظيم هذا الحدث الهام، أستاذنا الأستاذ دكتور إسماعيل سراج الدين الرئيس والمدير التنفيذي المشارك لمكتبة الإسكندرية ونائب رئيس البنك الدولي الأسبق، الأستاذ دكتور سيد خليفة نقيب الزراعيين، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية أنا هنتقل إلى الحديث باللغة الإنجليزية عشان الضيوف الأجانب، بس أنا في البداية عايز أشكر جامعة عين شمس ورئاسة جامعة عين شمس وأساتذة جامعة عين شمس ومعهد الأراضي القاحلة بعين شمس على تنظيم هذا المؤتمر الهام في الوقت المناسب كما ذكر الأفاضل. وبشكر طبعا الاستجابة الكريمة للأستاذ دكتور محمود محي الدين ومحاضرته الشيقة والواضحة. أنا يعني اسمحوا لي باسم أكاديمية البحث العلمي والتكنولوجيا ووزارة التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي يعني أشارك حضراتكم في الخطوط العريضة للخطة التنفيذية للوزارة لمجابهة التغيرات المناخية، وبالمرة كمان يعني نسلط الضوء عن الجهود الجارية في الفترة السابقة والمستهدف في الفترة القادمة بإذن الله. خليني to switch to English. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear Professor Metini, President of Ain Shams University, former Minister Adil Biltag, Minister of Agriculture, and the organizer of this very important event, Excellency Ismail Sirajuddin, co-found director of Bibliotheca Alexandrina and former vice president of World Bank, dear ladies and gentlemen, Professor Mahmoud Muhyiddin, champion of COP27. It's really a great pleasure and honor to be with you today to give you an overview about the action plan of the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research Egypt related to confrontation of climate change crisis. Before going to the details or the outline of this action plan, kindly allow me to give you an overview about what Egypt actually done during the last 5 years to compete voluntarily and to reduce and lower the carbon dioxide emission in Egypt. Of course, it's well known and documented for everybody that Egypt is not among the top countries behind the climate change crisis. We are not on the top of the producer of carbon dioxide emission. However, the government of Egypt, like other developing countries and less developing countries, has to pay a lot to compete the negative impact of the climate change crisis. This is actually typical for most of African countries, developing and less developing countries as well. During the last 5 years, the government of Egypt has launched several mega projects to voluntarily lower carbon dioxide emission. For example, the establishment of the biggest plant for electricity production, Pimban station from photovoltaic, is one of the mega projects actually, where the government of Egypt invested to lower carbon dioxide emission and to transform voluntary to clean energy. This is just one project, one of the biggest stations worldwide for production of clean energy. The biggest project actually to transform most of the public transportation systems in Egypt to be electric system. We are speaking about monorail, about electric trains, about extension of metro network, about renovation of national network of roads. All of these investments lead to lowering carbon dioxide emission and costed a lot of billions just to actually align to the international effort to actually to lower carbon dioxide emission. Similarly, the new mega project related to reclamation of new desert land and adding something like 4.5 million faddan to the agricultural land. This is again one of the project must be classified as an investment from the government of Egypt to compete the crisis of climate changes. Similarly, the huge investment in the treatment of water and the efficient use of water droplets, either through treatment or lining of canals. This is also huge investment. So this is actually not the proper time and the place to mention and to highlight the effort of the government of Egypt actually to compete the climate change crisis. But we all believe that competing climate change cannot be only through innovative and technological solutions. It is through innovative and technological solutions, it's through education, and also public awareness, community engagement, and mindset transformation. It's a very complicated problem, actually, need a lot of effort and integration of efforts. Okay. I will pass very quickly about the outline of Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research Action Plan towards COP27 and beyond. I'm going to speak about some basic information about climate change, but it's well known and documented for everybody that, as I mentioned before, that developing and less developing countries has to pay a lot to compete with the crisis of climate change. Because Egypt will host the COP27, so it represents the voice of the global south, especially the south of Africa. Most of African countries, as I mentioned, are considered as high vulnerable country to climate change crisis. And Egypt, as well as the rest of African countries, has to invest a lot of effort and fund to face the consequences of losing more than 15% of its fertile land and agriculture, to face the consequences of increased salinity and salinization of groundwater, the problem of beach erosion, and addressing rises in temperature. It's actually a very long list of challenges must be faced by Egypt and African countries as well. The immediate action I just highlighted in my introduction, that the government of Egypt since 2017 spent too much in a mega project actually to voluntary lowering carbon dioxide emission. Egypt also recently has launched a climate change strategy 2050, and the objectives of Egypt climate change strategy, as you see, is to achieve sustainable economic growth by reducing carbon dioxide emission, to enhance adaptive capacity and resilience to climate change, to enhance climate change governance framework, and to enhance infrastructure through bank financing. And the most important objectives for us as higher education and scientific research community is to enhance scientific research, technology transfer, knowledge sharing, and public awareness for combating climate change and maximize energy efficiency. As you see in this figure, the strategy or the action plan of the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research to compete climate changes consists of 6 main pillars. The first pillar is strategic direction and policy paper. Of course, it's well known and documented that better understanding of future impacts of climate changes is actually very important to help and to support national effort to put the proper action plan to combat climate change. So without a real and foresighting information about the impact of climate change, we cannot actually adopt a national plan to adapt and to confront climate changes. So the importance of strategic foresighting studies is so important. And in this regard, we are actually in their need, as highlighted by Professor Mahmoud Muhyiddin in his introductory speech, for collaboration and sharing knowledge and information related to climate change. To be honest, until today, most of satellite observation data, big data, are not accessible for researchers and scientists and policymakers from the developing countries. So we are speaking about global challenge, and in the meantime also, the needed information actually for better preparation and prediction of the impact of climate change is not actually accessible to the developing and less developing countries, at least free of charge. The second pillar of the strategy is related to allocation of some of the allocated fund for research development and innovation in Egypt to Green Fund, what we called is National RDI Green Fund. Again, as mentioned by Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin, he pointed out or he highlighted or shed the light about the importance of public fund in climate change adaptation. And in this regard, I'm very happy to confirm that the government of Egypt, in spite of the economic challenges, allocated generous fund to support green research development and innovation proposals aiming at supporting Egypt's efforts to compete climate change crisis. This fund is managed by the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology and by STDF. And if you are quite familiar with the ongoing open calls, you will see that 2 calls actually were launched from the Academy and STDF to support green research development and innovation. So this is the second actually pillar of the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research to compete climate change. The third one, which is really very important, is the national and international networking. Okay, it's well known again that that climate change is a global challenges. So global challenges need global efforts, and networking is an important issue. And in this regard, actually, the University of Ain Shams led a very important initiative on the national level through the Egyptian Universities Alliance in collaboration with UK Universities Alliance and the Global University Alliance. So now is the time actually is to shed the light on the role of universities outside the campus. So the universities has a very important and vital role to play in climate change crisis. We would like actually to give the opportunity to science to speak and to highlight its contribution in COP27. This is just an example. Societal and institutional adaptation also is one of the objectives of the action plan. And again, most of the Egyptian universities, research institutions, governmental institutions as well, invested too much effort in activities related to raising the awareness about climate change through different mechanisms, different initiatives under different titles. This is one also of the main pillar of the action plan. The fifth one is related to higher education itself. And nowadays, the Supreme Council of Universities and a gather of experts from all Egyptian universities are preparing curricula to be mainstreamed in higher educations about the climate change confrontation and adaptation, or coexistence and adaptation, let us say. So, of course, in addition to the cross-cutting curricula in different schools in Egyptian universities. So this course is actually highlighting the importance of community engagement in confronting climate change. The sixth pillar of the action plan is to dedicate and to actually launch targeted calls for green and social innovation to compete climate change issues. I'm not going to speak about the details of this action plan, but I will leave the presentation with His Excellency Minister Adel Beltagi, the organizer of this very important event, and you will see all the details about the action plan. Here you see the strategic studies we are actually now preparing in collaboration with international science community. One is related to how to achieve sustainable food production under climate change. The second one is related how to mitigate the impact of climate change crisis on health. And third one is related to how to reach low carbon emission via innovative solution and mindset transformation, etc. Actually, in collaboration and under supervision of Professor Muhyiddin, champion of COP27, we are now preparing for a new initiatives to be actually implemented and led by Egyptian University Network in collaboration with international science community. The initiative, the running title of the initiative for the time being is Redirect. Redirect means is to redirect a part of the resources for research, development, and innovation, and the mobilization of resources of Egyptian universities, international universities toward competing climate change. I will stop here. I know that I used more than the allocated time, and we will have enough time to discuss the rest of the presentation in more detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud. I think it's we're running out of time. We had started a little bit late, but let us go fast now. We would like to hear from the Dr. Khalifa. أنت ما كلمتش. لا ازاي. We will start with Dr. Said Khalifa. He's a mixture of research, as well as he is responsible for the syndicate for agriculture, as well as the African syndicate for agriculture engineer. The floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا دكتور محمود على الدعوة الكريمة. شكرا مع الوزير الدكتور عادل بلتاجي. تحياتي للمنصة الدكتور إسماعيل والدكتور محمود صقر والدور المتميز لأكاديمية البحث العلمي والمجتمع الأكاديمي في مصر، دكتور أسامة، الدكتور علي أبو سابع زميلنا مدير عام كاردة. كل الشكر لحضراتكم جميعا. ومن أهم الموضوعات اللي يتناولها هذا المؤتمر هي قضية الغذاء والأمن الغذائي، لأن هذا القطاع هو من أكثر القطاعات هشاشة. وخلينا كلنا نتذكر، وأنا هنا أمثل المجتمع المدني الزراعي سواء في مصر أو في أفريقيا، حتى الدول اللي معاها موارد مالية ضخمة جدا وقدرات مالية ضخمة جدا لم ولن تستطيع مواجهة أزمة نقص الغذاء الفترة اللي فاتت رغم الموارد المالية الضخمة لهذه الدول. ومن هنا تأتي أهمية هذا القطاع وربطه وقضية التغيرات المناخية واستضافة مصر للكوب. وأنا بشكر يعني جامعة عين شمس مع الوزير والدكتور محمود وكلية الزراعة ومعهد المناطق القاحلة، لأن هذا المؤتمر هو تعزيز لقدرات الدولة المصرية لاستضافة قمة المناخ وعرض رؤية البحث العلمي الزراعي ورؤية المجتمع المدني ورؤية القطاع الخاص وانا بشكر يعني الدكتور محمود محي الدين تناول جزء مهم جدا وهو خاص بالتمويل، ومعانا اشقائنا الدارسين في افريقيا وكل الشكر لحضورهم وتقديرهم. وكما تعلمون حضراتكم ان القاره الافريقيه حجم الانبعاثات حوالي 3% من اجمالي الانبعاثات على مستوى العالم، والدول الصناعيه الكبرى التي تسببت في غازات الاحتباس الحراري وفي تغيرات المناخ لم تلتزم بتعهداتها بدعم الدول الناميه. يتحدثون الان عن منح الدول الافريقيه قروض وبفوائد، يا ريت حتى قروض عشان نعمل عمليه تخفيف وتكيف بدون فايده، انما يتحدثون عن قروض وكمان بفايده. والقاره الافريقيه هي من تتحمل خسائر الدول الصناعيه التي بنت نهضتها وحضارتها وتقدمها على حساب القاره الافريقيه، ونحن في افريقيا من ندفع خسائر التنميه والتقدم الصناعي التي حصلت في الدول المتقدمه. وبالتالي فرصه لينا ان قمه المناخ تعقد في مصر، واشقائنا الافارقه ينظرون الى هذه القمه انها قمه افريقيا، ليس ان مصر دوله افريقيه تعقد فيها، انما هم يطالبون وسوف يؤكدون كل مطالبهم، ونطلب ان تكون هناك التزامات قانونيه ملزمه للدول الصناعيه بتمويل مشروعات للتكيف والتخفيف مع تغيرات المناخ وتاثيرها على القاره الافريقيه وعلى الدول الناميه. زي ما تفضل معالي الوزير 2.5 مليار يعانون من الجفاف ونقص الغذاء، يعيشون في المناطق الجافه وشبه الجافه. تلاحظون الان رغم التقدم والموارد الماليه الضخمه في الدول المتقدمه في اوروبا او امريكا، نلاحظ جفاف الانهار، نلاحظ نقص في الامن الغذائي، في نقص في انتاج الغذاء. وبالتالي مطلوب كلنا ان احنا نساعد وندعم القمه المناخ وان ندلو بدلونا وتكون هناك رؤيه والتزامات. وبشكر حضراتكم شكرا جزيلا، واتمنى التوفيق للمؤتمر ولحضراتكم جميعا. شكرا جزيلا.
I'd like to thank Dr. Khalifa for this. I think the message is very clear. You want more support for the African countries, and the message is well taken. Let me just move now. I will ask the main supporter for this meeting to start one by one. Now the time has shrinked up, so probably 3 minutes, and I know that they are highly professional. In 3 minutes, they can say a lot. Let me start with Dr. Ismail Swagadin is going to talk about STS, the Science and Technology for Society in Kyoto, Japan, as well as the RACC. What is this organization and platforms? Please. You need no introduction. Yeah?
No, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Adel. I will be very brief as you have asked. It is important that we have one of the most important fora in the world, which is the STS, Science and Technology in Society, looking at the transformations that are happening, and we are now in our 20th year. But about 12, 13 years ago, we decided that there was a fundamental problem in dealing with global issues when we want local action, because there's enormous variability between countries living near the North Pole and countries living near the desert, in the tropics, and so on. So we did an associated structure called the Regional Action for Climate Change, RACC. It's attached to that big forum in Japan, which is headed by the Prime Minister of Japan, but it is focused on the needs of different regions in the world. And we want to arrive at analyses of these regions in order to help guide what kind of projects could go there, especially for the poorest, who need, therefore, adaptation and resilience. And that is the meaning of the RACC, and we are very proud to be co-sponsors of this event. Another co-sponsor is the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, which has a very large number of former heads of state and government who will be joining us in the last day of this conference, who bring their experience and their wisdom to help us perhaps find ways of mediating between the rich who have but do not want to give, and the poor who need and who are not receiving. So we want to bridge that gap, as well as the knowledge gap, as well as the product gap. And in particular, I'm so happy to see so many young Africans, because the future of the world is Africa. It is the continent which is growing. It's population-wise, it's growing economically and growing in every which way, but also it is the continent who has contributed least to the problems of climate change and which is suffering most from the consequences of that climate change, both in terms of erratic rainfall, when 95% of sub-Saharan Africa relies on rain-fed agriculture for food security, as well as, of course, in the dry areas that we know, both on the Sahelian side in south of the Sahara and on North Africa and beyond. We are facing big challenges, and it is these young people who are here who will be carrying the burden in the years to come, and we should do the most to empower them to speak, participate, and be heard. And I'm so happy that in Ain Shams University, they have a place where they can participate with the international experts as well. Thank you all, and I look forward to a wonderful program. And of course, I must thank our host, the president of the university, one more time for hosting us for this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite the Deputy Director for the region, Dr. Dar. He's the Deputy Director of FAO. Please, if he's on online, if we can connect him. Dr. Badawi.
Dr. Adel, you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes. السلام عليكم. أولا صباح الخير.
تفضل يا فندم.
محمد المتيني ودكتور عادل البلتاجي، شكرا جزيلا على هذه الدعوة الكريمة. واحنا كمنظمة الأغذية والزراعة يشرفنا جدا دعم هذه المبادرات، خصوصا في هذا الوقت الذي نحضر فيه جميعا ونتحضر فيه للكوب 27 في شرم الشيخ بإذن الله في نوفمبر. Let me start by referring to my very good friend, colleague, Dr. Mahmoud Muhaddin, when he mentioned about the need for localizing actions. And I remind him very well of what I heard from him many times: think globally and act locally. Indeed, these meetings will bring in the attention to the challenge that we have. Maybe I will share with you a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, I had a field visit to one of the FAO projects in the North Delta, تحديدا في exactly in كفر الشيخ and محافظة البحيرة, to see together with the Canadian Minister for International Development, to see some of the ongoing projects on climate smart agriculture projects under FAO, where we try to support the small farmers to eradicate the seawater intrusion, which is a major challenge that's arising out of the climate change for the region, which produces probably the highest productive in terms of food. And the idea is, of course, seawater intrusion cannot be stopped, but is to invest in what we call more climate resilient genes and agriculture for the small farmers. I would like to remind all the participants that it is important to bear in mind that 80% of our food globally is produced by small farmers. They are the most effective, they are the most vulnerable, and they are the most non-resilient to the current climate changes. And if we do not take extra efforts to support them, that will directly impact on the way we produce our food. So it's quite essential, it's quite critical that what we do in FAO is to focus on small farmers. We have an average in our region, about 60% of the population lives in the rural areas, and that impacts on the livelihood overall. Of course, our good friend, Professor Ismail Sirajuddin, supports us in many efforts, and we are heading towards the Science and Innovation Forum in October later this year for also launching the FAO Science and Innovation Strategy, as well as the climate change strategy that is recently launched. I would like in short, given the time, to maybe share with all participants that the FAO strategic framework is built around what we call the 4 betters, and that is to aim for better production, better nutrition, better environment for a better life, leaving no one behind. And this strategic framework is what guides our regional priorities in the region. The Near East and North Africa region that I am overseeing on behalf of the FAO globally faces tremendous challenges related to water scarcity, climate change, desertification, and recently we see more and more of the sandstorms and the reduction of water levels. All these challenges coming together, topped up with the COVID-19 impact, as well as the what we see today in terms of food security. And Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin referred to some of the figures that was produced by FAO and WFP related to hunger and food insecurity. The latest of which shows that about 30% of the population in our region of the Near East and North Africa is infected by food insecurity, and we are completely off track today from achieving SDG 2 on the zero hunger. So there, I really thank Dr. Adel Beltaji for engaging us, and Dr. Mohammed Al-Miteni for hosting this important event. And we support the efforts with ICARDA, ACSAD, and all the alliances and the gathering of the partners around supporting the dry lands. And we hope that we can come together soon for a joint action at COP27. Last but not least, the COP27 preparations ongoing. We are heavily engaged with the
عمرو خليه يبعت لك صوت الباسبور بتاعك والتأشيرة وانا عندك صوت الباسبور
sorry, I'm
بتاعك
hearing
والتأشيرة واعمل صوتين من كل واحد.
some background noise. Somebody is unmuted.
sorry for that.
We're supporting the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation of Egypt, the presidency, on setting up the program for the water pavilion, as well as the food pavilion, the Food and Agriculture Organization. And we'd like to see more partners. I heard Dr. Mohammed Al-Miteni speaking about presenting the outcome of this gathering. So we'll be very happy to engage you on the events around those pavilions to be able to showcase, present, and share the outcomes with the participants of the COP27. I wish you all the best and assure you of the FAO full support for this particular event and the similar events that are heading towards COP27. I wish you all successful deliberations and look forward to continue.
Thank you, Dr. Daer. And now would like to invite my colleague, Ali Abu Sabr. He is the director of the dry area region. He is Director General of ICARDA, the International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry area. He is a former vice president of the African Bank, and he worked in Africa for years, probably seeing the African students here, he feel at home. And he has been aging, and this is what you do when you work very hard. I have seen him only 5 years ago, he was not like that. Then, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adel, for
So
the very generous introduction. And Mr. President, thank you so much for organizing this. In the interest of time, I'll be very short, so I'll try and economize and use my words wisely. I will have an opportunity to speak to all of you tomorrow through a more comprehensive and elaborate presentation about the work we do. But, just to say a few words, ICARDA is the International Center for the Agriculture Research in the dry lands, in the dry areas. It's part of the CGIAR system, a system that was established about 50 years ago. The prime challenge then was the hunger. So it was more about producing food. And we work mostly in the area of water management, improving crop varieties using genetic resources from the very rich gene banks that have been built and resourced over the years. And the third area is the small ruminants. Now, 50 years later, today, the challenges that we have are mostly around climate change. But the work we have done over the past 50 years, and very conveniently and very nicely actually helps provide the solutions for the enormous challenges that humanity faces today. Today, science is able to provide the solutions, the genetic innovations, the crops that can deal with negative and challenging impacts of climate change, whether they are rising temperatures, changing climates, new forms of pest and disease. All of these things, fortunately, for the past 50 years, we've been working together with many of you across the globe to develop these solutions. Those solutions that are actually helping very timely European countries, Asian countries that are facing heat waves that has never been witnessed in the past. In fact, I was reading an article recently. In the UK, the heat waves that they have seen last month is what the models predicted for the UK to see by the year 2050. So the climate change is accelerating, and it's accelerating in a very big way and in a very scary way. So what we're hoping to achieve from partnering with this very important conference is to be able to exchange knowledge, to see what is the latest innovations that can be leveraged, that can be put into farmer fields, that are going to be supported, hopefully, by the donor countries, by the countries themselves. Dr. Muhyiddin mentioned the greatest source of finance is the country's own budgets, al-muwazana. So I think what would be so interesting is with the very rich contribution, around 45 global scientists or scientists from across the globe, availed the opportunity through great proposal organized by Dr. Adel and hosted by the president of the university, is to allow us to actually have this intellectual exchange and hopefully come up with some very concrete proposals that will find their ways into that white paper and be hopefully part of the discussion during the climate. The last point is that Dr. Elwar mentioned the food pavilion, the water pavilion. These are very two important venues during the COP process that will allow partners to come together. It's really our pleasure that we'll be partnering with the FAO and with the Rockefeller Foundation, a tripartite event that will allow us to be present over almost a period of about 12 days during the COP, and we'll be looking to our partners to come and share experiences and make sure that we have significant opportunities to demonstrate what innovations, science, and technology can do to help countries overcome and deal with the negative impacts of climate change. Thank you very much. Look forward to speak to you in more detail tomorrow.
Thank you. And now we'd like to ask Professor Osama al-Bahiri, the Dean of the Institute for the Graduate Studies for the Arid Land, Ain Shams University, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. طبعا في البداية بحب أشكر معالي الدكتور محمود المتيني رئيس الجامعة على استضافة هذا المؤتمر، وبرحب بالسادة البانلز وجميع الحضور. المعهد معهد من المعاهد الجديدة في الجامعة، وبحب ان انا ادي فكرة عن المعهد بطريقة سريعة. The vision of the ALARI is seek to become a pioneering and recognized model for technology higher education at the local, regional, and global levels through the excellence of its educational and research outputs, its community service, and its role in the development. In the field of seeking to achieve a comprehensive economic and social renaissance based on knowledge of the dynamic agricultural sector capable of rapid and sustainable growth and serving the purpose of scientific research, training, and development locally, regionally, and globally in the arid lands. The mission of the Institute is to have an opportunity for high quality applied universities education and learning that is available for having a visa and providing knowledge in scientific fields related to sustainable agricultural development in arid regions and preparing human cadres in research, teaching, and guidance to serve the development in these regions. The regions meet with contemporary global trends in the field of technology, higher education, and provide training and consulting service and scientific research service, and exchange experience with beneficiary sector to meet the needs of sustainable development in Egypt. In general, the region served by Ain Shams University, in particular, according to quality standards. The institutes include 5 departments, which is new in the all agriculture colleges. The first one is dry and salt farming technology. The second one, protected agriculture technology in arid lands. The third one, biotechnology and food safety in arid lands, bioengineering system in arid lands, livestock and poultry in arid lands. We are willing to cooperate with all distinguished institutes working on arid lands study globally. Again, we are welcome you to our meeting, and we have a successful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Osama. And now an activist who has the look of a professor, worked very hard in his own domain, which is a very lethal domain. But let me introduce Professor Salah Suleiman. He will talk about the platform of the African colleagues, and he has 2 minutes. I'm sure that he can do it in less even.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. المنصة الكريمة، أولا أنا فوجئت طبعا بدعوة الدكتور عادل ومعالي الدكتور رئيس الجامعة، لكن أنا الحقيقة سعيد جدا إن أنا أبقى في التيم اللي هم بينظموا هذا المؤتمر. ويعني أنا جاي من جامعة اسكندرية، طبعا إحدى الجامعات الشقيقة لجامعة عين شمس، وأحب إن أنا أقدم بس الشباب اللي هم بيعملوا.
ممكن بالإنجليزي؟
نعم يا فندم. Speak English? Oh, sure. Thank you. I'm sorry for that. Well, I'm introducing here a program called the African League of Young Masters. We depend on all of those young people who are here to represent almost 16 countries of our African continents. They are members of the African League of Young Masters program, which was created in 2011, and we meet every week and almost every other days together in order to build the capacity, the knowledge and leadership capacities of those young people. We created this program, as I said, in 2011 with the support of Dr. Ismail Siraj al-Din while we were together working in the Library of Alexandria. And now we are everywhere you can find us in the continents, everywhere. At least we have 24 people who actually got free scholarship from the American University here in Cairo and in Beirut. We have people who has finished their PhD degree in Iowa and other universities around the world. But they are here to hear their voice. They are for their continents, which is really, as it has been mentioned, not adding much to the emission of carbon dioxide, but suffering the most. And however, some of those countries are doing better than many other countries in the mitigation, but we need the adaptation and build the resilience of those people for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Salah. I'll turn the floor for President Mahmoud al-Matini, please.
Now it gives me great pleasure after hearing all our distinguished speakers in very subject matter experts to shift again to a doctor and one of our leaders in the medical field in Egypt and the counselor for His Excellency the President of Arab Republic of Egypt, Professor Dr. Awad Tajuddin. You are online with us now. We were waiting for you at the beginning of the session. I know you had a lot of obligations, so if you can step in now and دكتور عوض اهلا بحضرتك وسعداء انك تكون معانا. هتقدر تتكلم بالعربي في ترجمه فوريه او بالانجلش as you like. دكتور عوض موجود ولا or he left? I think he's موجود.
I'm sorry. Let me just before Professor Awad Tajuddin will come on the screen, let me just brief you on what is IDDC is for. It's the International Dryland Development Commission. It's been formed 40 years ago out of concerned scientists who would like to see that the inhabitants of the dry area, the now 2.5 billion, are really had a wonderful livelihood rather than living in misery. Therefore, the question was how to use the tools of science and innovation to make a difference for the livelihood of these people. We had up till now more than 15 international conferences in India, in the States twice, in Arizona, and we had in Mexico, as well as in China, in Iran, as well as again in Egypt. We had about 2 meetings as well. Therefore, this forum is linking the people who are working on this domain from all aspects of science to make a difference on the ground for the people living in the dry area. I will stop here, and if Professor, His Excellency Professor Awad Tajuddin is there, I will turn to President Professor Matini.
So I think we finished the opening session, and I think the best conclusion of this opening session will be a keynote lecture from His Excellency Dr. Adel Biltagi, the one who is behind the whole idea of our meeting today and the coming 2 days. And we will be very eager to listen to you, Dr. Adel, and thank you very much for all the efforts, and thanks again for the organizing committee, the local one, the international one, and all who are with us today. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, today what we are going to talk about is the challenges of which is facing us on this planet Earth, and these challenges are many. This is not working. Yeah, we would like to avoid having 4 centigrade increase in the temperature of this planet, and therefore we need to work very hard. This is not helpful. Can I have somebody from the assistance? We need to look that and use the means and ways of how we can avoid this catastrophe of increasing heat. Okay, that's not working. Okay. Therefore, this increase in temperature could really could move even beyond the 4 centigrade. This is the IPCC assessment, which is 2001. And I will give you the recent one, which was published in 2022. And this is IPCC 2022, where we can see clearly that we are going, in 2030, it will move up close to 3 centigrade. And this is, every line here represents different scenarios with different modeling system. But we could arrive by the end of 2100 to more than 5 centigrade. This is a really great catastrophe for all the living organisms on this planet, because 1.5 centigrade, which we were aiming at after the Paris Agreement, was not satisfactory. But even we are moving beyond this, tremendously beyond this. The sea level rise is going to be evident, the coral bleaching, as well as decay for the coral reef will happen, and this is not a very a good scenario. Therefore, this is from our doing as human beings on this planet. Some areas are projected to become wetter, others will become drier. Russia will win from that because the North Sea is going to open for communication, and they are going to use all the wells there, as well as Canada is going to be as well in a better position, but the rest of the world is going to be affected. Nobody will escape this. The United States, if we calculate how much they spent in the last 4 years, even in Trump time, it's about $2.8 trillion coming out of the climate change. Severe weather conditions, hurricanes, and the rest of it has caused a lot of damage. In the dry areas, we will have an exodus for the inhabitants from this area, going somewhere else where there is a green meadow. The problem is in this, what you're seeing now is the impact on food, water, ecosystem, extreme weather events, risk, irreversible change. And all of this could happen in this increasing pressure of climate change. I will talk now precisely on what will happen in agriculture. All these red spots are the spots which will be affected. We are talking here about a reduction in the production of food in the world from 25% to 50% by year 2050. And this is enormous. Imagine we are wasting food. At least 35% of the world food production are wasted. Post-harvest aspects are not there, and we need to do it. But as well as we will have reduction of between 25 to 50% by year 2050. In addition to this, there is increase in population, which will require 70% more production. And the farmers everywhere are going to be affected. As I was saying, 70% more food is needed while we are going down. How can we feed the world by this? Even this picture shows you the agony of this creature who's being captured in the water after the melting the ice around it from everywhere. The threatened delta in the world, there was a lot of studies about 80 deltas of the world. The most serious effect and impact will be in the Nile Valley Delta and the Mekong River. And this will mean an exodus of all the industrial installment on the sea, as well as the population. They have to go somewhere else. And this is, of course, catastrophic. Here in Egypt, we have a scenario for 50 centimeter increase of the level or 1 meter. And this will affect agriculture because we are going to lose not only, I mean, the sea may go close to Al-Mahalla, which is down there close to Tanta. Then you can go for the summer in Tanta rather than going to Alexandria. But what's more dangerous is the seawater intrusion, which will go in the rest under the fresh water. There will be seawater intrusion from the sea to the delta, which will affect agriculture tremendously. Therefore, we need to do something about this. This is the level of the increase. We are talking about 20 centimeters. If it goes up to 40 to 60 centimeters by year 2050, this is how it looks. But by year 2100, this man and his child, this is the picture of how they will look. This is a city called Passau in Germany, which I visited in 1963. And this is a flood from the Danube River. All the major rivers, not only in Europe, but in China and India, is going to be highly affected because the ice caps of the mountains which feed this river is going to melt. And therefore we'll have huge problem of flooding in Europe. Climate change as well affect aquaculture. Our colleague, Professor Osman from Ain Shams University is going to talk about the impact on aquaculture, which will be enormous. Not only inland fishery, but marine fishery is going to be affected because the plankton is going to be affected, both types of plankton. And there is an area already under Latin America, which is the size of the whole of Latin America, as the changes already is being observed. And the coral reef, because it's a place where there will be a lot of breeding for fish. As far as the animal concern, we are concerned about zoonotic diseases, which is a transmission of disease from animals to human beings, as well as there is no passports for this. And therefore you have open border, you don't have to go through the police to show your passport. It's very dangerous. This is happening. I mean, the World Organization for Animal Health, OIE, is taking care of this, as well as a lot of monitoring has to be done. With us in this room, Dr. Mohsen Shukri, who chaired the Livestock and Fisheries Council of the Academy, and with him, Dr. Adel Abu Naga as well. They are going to talk in this meeting about this. Talking about analysis and prediction, we need to continue this process, and the World Climate Research Program, which is very important research program, this program really has really made a lot of focus on 3 areas for agriculture, and this is in North America, in Europe, as well as a part which is close to China and in Asia. But where is Africa in this? It's not there. And therefore we need to be very careful. Food is not only on this high yielding spots in the world. This is political. But when you talk about people in Africa, where is the spot here to be studied well, and we make proper assessment for the impact of climate change on these valuable areas, at least for us, the inhabitant of this place. Equation here that with the emission, all the emission from agriculture is about 25%, and my colleagues who will talk on the session about the livestock and animal, they will talk about this issue. But as well, we need, as agriculture production, to balance agriculture production with the waste and losses which is happening. And one important issue is the nutrition, awareness of people of changing diet. We cannot continue doing what we are doing in wasting food and even harming ourselves. We had the Dean of School of Medicine, probably, and we have a lot of wonderful scholars in medicine here. If you don't change the diet for the sake of the human being, you will lose the battle before you start it, because it doesn't matter what you do, especially with pregnant women and young children who didn't really arrive to 6 months. The cognitive formation, the brain, is highly affected in this period. Of course, we have poultry. Poultry as well is involved on this. We have a dean he's specialized in poultry. Let me go back here. This is the literature of science of climate change and the growing public awareness and the improvement of various actors, the IPCC assessment. This data for 2022, it shows you the increase of this domain of science and the involvement. Here it's not in agriculture only. In all domains of science, there is an increased interest of the impact of climate change. Any thermoliable cell will be affected. Therefore, it doesn't matter where you are, humans included. Research agenda, it has to encompass climate change, variability, risk reduction and resilience, biodiversity and ecosystem change in atmospheric, terrestrial and marine domain, resource utilization and pathway for the sustainable development. All these aspects we have to take care of. We need to go through the adaptation elements and mitigation, as well as global stock taking for all this information to transfer it and in a very transparent action, and go to public awareness and capacity development. Part of the capacity development is where we are standing now. Universities, education centers, research centers. This is where knowledge starts to be born. And we should emphasize this all the time for ourselves and generation to come. The world population now is probably about 9.7 billion and moving upward. This is an issue which we have to be careful with, because we are heading for 10 billion. Egypt in 2050 will be more than 150 million. And probably we'll have about 4 million Egyptians going outside of Egypt around the world. We need to be careful what we are going to do with this increase in population. With this number, from 7.9 to 10 billion, this increase of population will happen in 70% of it will happen in the 24 poorest countries of the world. Then the increase in population is not going to happen in the States or in Sweden or in Canada. It will happen in Africa and Asia, in the very poor countries. The young in the world, which is, we need to look at it all the time. The young in the world need more attention, because the young in the world, if they are not well educated, if they are not empowered by education, they will be threat for their country rather than they will be a liability rather than an opportunity for their own country. Climate out-migration and what I call environmental refugees, maybe between 200 million This is Professor Meyer in Oxford. But other suggestion is that the environmental refugees could be about 1 billion by year 2025. This is a catastrophe for the whole world. These people, they don't have home, they will move, and they will cause disruption, they will cause socio-political upheaval, not only in their countries, but where they are going as well. Therefore, the world is on the edge. This slide is from The Economist, but it's true because we need to do something, and for us to do something, we need to go for the knowledge which is coming out of science. We need to cater for one of the sustainable goals is zero hunger, and we need to see what we are going to do with this. This is the tools of science which we can use, new mode of remote sensing and GIS and the rest of it, but there is new machinery for it, the biotechnology, genetic engineering, gene editing, gene mining, proteomics, simulation modeling, information technology, expert system, advanced artificial intelligence, renewable energy, solar, wind, biofuel, new energy-saving techniques for desalination and water transportation, nanotechnology. We can use biosensors as well as bioprocessing and nanomaterial. This is just to say the few, but when we talk about adaptation, in agriculture we have two pathways. We have to introduce new varieties. We have to, which is drought tolerant to biotic and abiotic stresses, and a new genetical makeup. And we will hear, there is a session where we will have this topic discussed by Professor Magdi Matkour, who is the founder of the Genetic Engineering Institute in Egypt years ago, as well as Dr. Sameh. But this topic is going to be covered. Another topic is new agro-management technique, especially to be used on farm. This is where innovative technology for irrigation nutrition to increase precision. And this is the basis of precision agriculture. And I don't want to get into detail, but we need to go for C4 rice, nitrogen-fixing wheat, enhancing photosynthetic pathway, functional breeding, as well as developing abiotic and abiotic varieties. And as I said, for the agro-management technique, we had moisture sensor, optimizing use of nutrition, simulation modeling, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and IoT, which Internet of Things. All these tools has to be used in order that we can see a difference. As I said, this is how the impact will be on the fruits and the post-harvest losses. There is impact on insects. There is impacts on even disease like rust disease and other diseases which will affect the plants. I want to move faster. The impact on biodiversity is enormous. Not only wild plant, which is very important for us as a human being, which all this diversity in the biodiversity, we keep it in gene banks, and we keep it for a day. This picture here is for the World Gene Bank in Svalbard, which is an island in the North Pole, and we are putting there 6 million accessions just for the world to use. This is in a mountain, glacial mountain. It does not need any electricity, and the seeds are kept there. Icarda seeds are there, all the international centers. And Dr. Swaguddin, when he was chair of the International Agriculture Research Santos with the CGIAR, he signed with the UN an agreement that this does not belong to anybody. It belongs to the whole world. Then nobody can touch it. And all the people has agreed about this, and therefore this gene bank has a flag of the world. And they consider it, they call it, it's the NOAA. This is how it looks inside this mountain, glacial mountain. I was member of the board, and then after that I was vice president of the board of this global trust. This is Miss Wangari, a Nobel Prize winner. She was with us on this, and this is Margaret Castley Carlson. She was a chairman of the UN World Population. Anyhow, let me just take you from there to war and the impact of war in biodiversity, and of course, superimposed on the calamity which is coming from increase of temperature, you lose the genetic resources, and therefore this gene bank in Svalbard is very important, like the ship of Noah, Safinat Nuh. Therefore, we had the decrease or the water scarcity in 2025. You see this area which all in red. Egypt is including. These countries are below 500 cubic meter per person per year. We have with us, and he will talk on the third day, the Minister of Agriculture of Jordan. In Jordan, they have 150 cubic meter of water per person per year. And the United States is 17,000. The world average is 7,000. If you go less than 500, you have acute water poverty. Egypt will be one of the countries which will have this acute water poverty. Then optimization of water use is very important for us. The Nile was with us 5,500 years ago, where agriculture has started on this Nile Valley. Therefore, we need to use all means and ways of trying to make a difference. And therefore, the breakthroughs and this is the wheat genome sequencing, and this paper was published 2018. It opened a lot of avenues for breeders to build on it and to have drought-tolerant wheat to tolerate more heat. The invention of the gene editing, whereby you can edit the genes the way which is desired. For instance, you can knock out genes which is sensitive, and you can put genes which is tolerant to drought, and then you can have a drought plant. This publication is 2020, and they talk about a CRISPR-Cas9 through gene editing and how it improved the production of rice under very high temperature. This is science. Science can do a lot, but I will talk later about why the whole picture is not completed. And therefore, this is, again, with gene editing in Arabidopsis, which we use as a tool to insert new genes on the other plants. And I will talk now about nanotechnology. It can be used, agriculture and food system security control. It can be used as smart delivery system. It can be used as a biological label and imaging, a tool for molecular and new cellular biology, new material for pathogen detection and environmental protection, microarray, gene and protein, nanoparticle complex of DNA and peptides, ATP and molecular machine, and devices which can be used as needed. Here it's used in a store to sense the humidity and anything which is coming out of infection of insects or whatever. This is just a very quick flap. This is slow for me. I always go faster than this, but anyhow, a priority for climate change adaptation, we're talking about data. We need a lot of data for the impact of vulnerability for proper assessment. We need institution policies and finance to strengthen capacities for adaptation. We need sustainable and climate smart management of land, water, and biodiversity. We need technology, practice, process for adaptation. And we need as well the tools for disaster risk management. Smart agriculture is a solution, but it has to be solution with rather than solution and full stop. Climate smart agriculture depends on sustainability, increase of productivity and production and income. National food security and development goals has to be maintained all the way through. Reduce agriculture contribution to climate change, strengthen resilience to climate change variability. This is the elements. Farming 4.0 or agriculture 4.0, which will make a revolution in agriculture. We have produced a book on this in the Academy of Science through the Council for Agriculture and Food, and it's available. We use drones to really have an assessment of moisture, an assessment of spots where there is disease, the use of Internet of Things for water management and machine for routine operation, and soil monitoring sensors. All this is an integrated systems. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we had machine learning, image processing, natural network, IoT, blockchain, bioinformatics, remote sensing and modeling. All these elements are very important, Dr. Ismail. And agro-management techniques with animal and fisheries, biocomputing, bioinformatics. I cannot take another hat because my hat was to stand in a podium like this and talk as one of Ain Shams University professors. I cannot stop being that. I'm sorry, Dr. Ismail. But sometimes I say, go out of the class. We cannot say this to you. Land use, as well as what I'm really heading for is it's not only the classical topics which take in a classical book. We need to innovate our colleges of agriculture. We need to be courageous enough to say enough is enough. We are going to go for another field. We tried this in the committee with the Supreme Council. We tried to put for the deans of School of Agriculture different courses. At least we have approved a new domain for ag engineering as well as for genomics. And we had about 4 or 5 new programs. Some deans has adopted this, some other deans wanted to do it at their leisure. We don't have time, dear professors. You need to move fast in order to stay where you are. And you need to have a very fast plane to move forward. I'm just saying this out of what I have seen around the world. And of course, it's up to us all. A computer expert system has to be used as well. And we had a very fine institute here in Egypt, which was founded in the 80s, and it was working very nicely, but now it's not anymore there. Anyhow, we need to use these tools to give us information about the assessment. We need to go for modern irrigation. We need to use Newton film technique. This technique has been used here at Ain Shams University in Chalayan, starting from in 1980 and 81. We introduced this from Littlehampton in England Dr. Osama has gone to the University of London to get the information for this. Alan Cooper was with us, as well as other people who invented the system of hydroponic. Therefore, this is used now. This is all in Newton film techniques. You produce vertically, and you increase the production sensibly, and you use some media which is inert. It doesn't have any, it doesn't give any infection, as well as you can produce fodder for feed in arid areas and help the people. I have seen this in Anand. I have seen this in India, in the Rajasthan desert. They use it to feed the camels and so on. Then, therefore, this element is not out of a dream. It can be utilized. It's only need the will. This system, which is an AgMet system, I'm saying this because we are in Ain Shams University. The first electronic computerized AgMet system was fixed in any experimental station was in Chal'an in the College of Agriculture here in Egypt. And it's been used. At that time, we had created the lab for arid land agriculture, which became now the institutes. And this equipment was there, funded by international agencies. I'm saying this, I'm sharing this with my colleagues and the scholars who are hearing us, because this is a story. This is our case study here, this is what happened in Egypt. For the future, you can have meat, which is synthetic meat, and the people in food technology has to renovate all what they are doing. You can have ice cream, which has nothing to do with eggs and milk and cows. All this is possible through the new technology, new food technology, rather than the food technology which has been taught. This three-dimension printers can do all sorts of miracles in food. Then synthetic biology is very important domain, and it could happen in the future. As far as Egypt is concerned, we had a strategy with the World Bank, and then another strategy in 2010, and then there was a strategy which has been published by the Academy as well as the Ministry of Agriculture. In all this, we had one major issue: how to optimize water use in Egypt. Therefore, we had a national program to improve irrigation in 8 million acres and save about 11 billion cubic meters of water, as well as, parallel to it, there was a program called Linking Farmer to Market. Therefore, you work how to get all this production for exportation and local and for local population as well. The aim was to increase production for crops and animals, export-oriented agriculture, as well as increase water productivity using ICT CAM. This is how Egypt was dependent on the shadoof and water 5,200 years ago, and this is in Upper Egypt a year ago. The same shadoof and the same concept. We need to move fast. ICARDA has done this benchmark sites whereby how to improve water use efficiency around the dry area in West Asia and North Africa. This is a summary of the program, which you can hear a lot about it. Professor Ayman Abu Hadid, a former Minister of Agriculture, as well as he is with us. I think he came back, as well as Professor Abghani Gindi. They are going to give a presentation on this. This is an issue which has to be integrated. Then you have to integrate the private sector, the public sector, the banking system, as well as agricultural extension, the academies, all sorts of entities together to do something. It's not a matter of one fits all. We still aiming, and everybody in the dry area will aim at crops, which is good in the dry area, but as well as good for industry. This is fig plants as well as olives. This is wonderful olives. I hope that we have this. Date palm. And this is a wonderful miracle crop called pomegranate. We all know it. India had a lot of wonderful things like this. When we were working in Afghanistan, they have the best genetic resources there. Egypt has produced a lot of extension tools based on artificial intelligence, and it was spread around the world. I have gone through this already. This food and water energy nexus is very important, and we need to focus on this all the time. Renewables are very important, and we need to go for it. In aquaculture, we will hear from Dr. Osman. Algae as well is very important. This slide only, I will stop in this socio-technical transition. This step, which is in red, is very important because you may have the technology, but doesn't have acceptance with the population. Therefore, this merger is very important. How we can do it, how we can integrate all what we are talking about, how we can look at adaptation without neglecting mitigation. Adaptation is needed now for the developing countries. In Africa, it's needed now. We are in the intensive care unit. People have the luxury of talking about mitigation only. They can have this luxury. But we as African and people in the dry area, we cannot afford to wait until something will happen. To cut long story short, I mean, all these countries has lack of coping capacity. They have as well lack of adaptive capacity. And therefore, one can see very clearly that the pattern of the coping pattern is going to change. And with the dynamic change of coping pattern, we need to see tools and means of assessing on the local level what will happen to the community. Of course, this is an integrated natural resources management aspect, so I'm not going to get into it. But how can we go from global to regional to local? All the assessment of the IPCC, all of it is global. Very few are regional. And very, very few, except in certain parts in California and north of France, that you have a local assessment. But for the people, the inhabitants, what really matters for them is the local assessment, not the very high level assessment. Therefore, we need to migrate from the global assessment to regional assessment to local assessment, and we need to go from mitigation adaptation to resilience. And this is what the objectives are at the end. Then we need problem analysis and system analysis, site selection, solutions, and extrapolation. Therefore, with this dynamic change in the cropping pattern, you need to introduce new crops. You need to know what is the environment around it. Because all what we are talking about is E, which is environment, by G, by the genetic resources, by P, by people, equal to the yield you got at the end of the day. This dynamic process has to take place. A valley between these mountains, the change of the temperature there will be different from slopes of mountains, from seashores. And the difference is great, is about more than 8 centigrade. It could happen. In Saskatoon, in Canada, there will be about 8 centigrade differences, while in other places you will have only 1 centigrade or 2. This is the ecosystem will vary. Therefore, this is a dynamic process, but it will be based on science. We have to look at all these elements, this is a BAUM detector for CO2, which we have fixed with ICARDA in Central Asia. This is in Kazakhstan. Anyhow, I don't want to get into this, but I would like to move very fast. But because the meeting you are going to see in the 3 days, which is coming, will take us through the technology, and from technology we'll go for the social and the political aspects of coping capacity and adaptive capacity. To cut a long story short, I need to go directly. This is the RACC meeting in Bab Alex in 2015, where we had African colleagues coming from everywhere talking about the same problem. What is the price of doing nothing? If we didn't do nothing now, what will happen? It's not only a food crisis. We are going to get to a political crisis for sure. And this is a catastrophe for the world. Therefore, we need vision, imagination, and creativity and innovation to go forward. We have to have hope. In Copenhagen, we said, hope in Hagen. It didn't happen. There was no hope. And I was there in this meeting. And in Cancun, the motto there would say, in Cancun, yes, we can. We didn't. But in Cancun, the Green Climate Fund was created, a technology mechanism where the platform of technology and exchange of science has been established, at least theoretical, but the translation is not there. We talk about things in convention, but no translation. And no translation, we have to ask ourselves why there is no translation. And Mr. Obama, in this slide was made in 2010. He said in 2020, and his hair is becoming white like my colleague Ali Abu Sab. He's asking, he said, I'm sorry, we could have done it. We could have stopped this catastrophe, but we didn't do it in Copenhagen in 2009. Therefore, the translation is very important. I don't want to talk about this slide, but this slide is very important. It's published from the IPCC 6 report in 2022. It shows you from urgent, timely action to really the implementation. It talks about climate change and the tools of adaptation and resilience. Everybody in this room has played snakes and ladder in one time or another. If you don't go precisely in what is needed to be done, you will miss your target. Then you are going to lose the game. Then science, knowledge, acknowledgement of people who are highly professional and take their opinions in the way forward is very important. If we don't do that, this is what will happen. Misery is our harvest, and this is what we don't want to see. We need people like Abdul Kalam in India, President of India. He was a scientist, true scientist who built up the Indian Institute for Technology. We need people like Mandela, and here is his Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ismail Sirajuddin. A person like Borlaug, the only Nobel Prize winner in the field of agriculture. We need all these people. We need people with political will which can be translated. Enhancing coping and adaptive capacity is very important. In order to bridge this puzzle, we need to insist that there is a have and have not. We need to move from one side to another in order to go to peace and stability. We need at last to a shift of consciousness on the part of the have and the part of the have not, and a new understanding of oneness of humanity. I do thank you. and I apologize if I took more time from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adil. Thank you for such an inspiring speech, very informative, very comprehensive. You touched nearly on all topics that will be touched on the coming 2 days. So you paved the way and you set the stage actually for the coming speakers. I think by this we conclude the session, and maybe you have some will witness. Okay, go ahead, please. Maybe Dr. Awad Tajuddin is the back with us before Dr. Asman. Dr. Awad. He just want to wish you good luck. He's not there? Okay, he left. Go ahead.
Dr. Asmahan Al-Wafi has background in biotechnology, and she has headed the International Center for Biosalinity in Dubai. And now she is the chief scientist of Food and Agriculture Organization, World Food and Agriculture Organization. Dr. Asmahan is there?
Yes, Dr. Adil.
Oh,
Assalamu alaikum.
sorry for taking some time from you, but this is done always maybe. Thank you. Thank
No,
you,
no
Dr.
worries
Asman.
at all. I hope you can see my screen. I'm trying.
Yeah, we hear you
to
loud
share
and
my
clear, please.
presentation.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, perfect. So thank you very much, Dr. Adil. Thank you very much, IDDC. And it's really nice to see many colleagues around. I mean, those that I can see on the screen at least, both remotely and in Egypt. سامحوني أنني ماني معكم in person, but really a pleasure to talk after you, Dr. Adil. And I think I'm going to skip some of my slides as you very well described many of the things I wanted to bring in. I'm going to a little bit give the global challenges, and I'm going to skip some of them as Adil, really, Dr. Adil brought them in very, very nicely. I'm going to give you.
Yes?
Whereas we see huge impact on Africa, agriculture in Africa, human being. So it is really nice to see COP come into Egypt and then to the United Arab Emirates. And it is very important to seize this opportunity to talk very loudly about really the issues around climate change and how much of it is really affecting our food security and nutrition security as well. So FAO, in collaboration with many organizations, brings forward always what we call the SOFI reports. The SOFI reports in 2022 again shows us that for the first, not for the first time, but for the last few years, we have a really an upsurge of food insecurity and malnutrition. And it is really getting worse than we thought. So we are in many ways losing the little gain that we did with the international development programs. So this year, and the numbers are for 2021, we have 828 million people that suffer from hunger. And if we look at the numbers and how much it has increases, you look 2019 to 2020, we have 150 million more, not less, whereas we have agreed that we can reduce it. Between 2020 and 2021, we have 46 million more. The numbers are really, it bears the the question, what are we doing? What are we doing really wrong? And why we are going up in numbers of food insecure people and malnourished people rather than down. COVID-19 was one of the reasons, and definitely COVID-19 affected very much the agri-food system and the supply chain. It increases struggles for farmers to access to the market. We had shortage of labor. We have transport restriction. We have perishable commodities that increase the food waste and loss and not decrease it. We saw plastic coming up. Now with the food crisis, with the Ukraine and Russia war, we are seeing again a huge disruption in the food supply chain. So definitely when we look at it, the major drivers, and we see them very much, and it's very clear in WFP reports as well as FAO, the biggest issue is conflict. And then the second one, it's climate variability and extreme and climate change that Dr. Adel very well outlined to us. So definitely we need to pay attention to those mega areas that we need really to target, knowing that in addition to these two and to the COVID-19, we have a number of other problems, including biodiversity loss, including inequalities and what have you. So what FAO has done is really provide 6 pathways to address major drivers behind recent food security and malnutrition. And those at the heart of it, it's reducing inequalities and reducing vulnerabilities. By reducing inequalities and vulnerabilities, you see very clearly that we need to do much more in dry land, because in dry land, we have huge vulnerability, but also in dry land, we have huge inequalities. And unfortunately, we have a huge number of very poor people that live out of marginal environments and in dry land particularly. So, and that takes me really to my slides whereby I'm trying to explain why should we care? Why should we pay attention to dry land ecosystem? And one of the reasons is we have about 2 billion people that live in dry land ecosystem. And this is distributed over about 100 countries, and 90% of them are in developing countries. We have the majority of them in Africa. We have a huge number in Asia, as well as in Latin America and Europe. And 44% of the world agricultural productive land is in marginal environments. So we need to produce more, not less. So we need to pay attention and find solutions for dry land ecosystem to produce better and produce more. And we have 25% of the world forests are in dry land, and 25% of global dry land are grasslands, whereas only 14% are cropland. So definitely all of this give us really the need to look at those dry land. And also we have to keep in mind that we have hotspots in the dry land. In the dry land, we have both hotspots for biodiversity, to stop degradation, and also for climate change. And the hotspot, let's see, approach is that we recognize right now that we have areas in the world whereby if we intervene, the impact is much higher. So the hotspot in biodiversity means that there are certain ecosystems and certain areas that if we protect them, we increase biodiversity much more, and we protect biodiversity much more. The same thing for climate change. So some of the hotspots are in those dry land. Also the dry land are important because, as I said earlier, they have a huge number of people, and they have really 4 threats that in the combination of those 4 threats, be it the climate change, the water scarcity, the land degradation, and the biodiversity loss, make us really that they have a huge number of people in those dry land that are in those numbering, this 828 million people that goes to bed hungry every night. I think climate change impact has been very clearly stipulated by Dr. Adel at the beginning of his presentation. So what we want to keep in mind, and I think for me, what's happening lately, be it the forest fire in Australia, and luckily social media worked for us to understand it better. What happens lately in Pakistan with the deadly floods, But also, we should not forget about the Sahel region and many of the region, dryland region, that are seeing much more hotter times and very, very disturbed cycle. So the cycle, the crop cycle that we know, that we have studied, have been disrupted very much by climate change. So climate change is a reality. It is aggravating food insecurity and malnutrition, and we need to keep it in mind. And when we talk about high temperature, for agriculture, what is very important for agriculture, it's two things. One of them is the water scarcity. So basically, with the same drop of water, you could have produced much more before the heat or before the plus 1.5 degrees, the plus 3 or the plus 5, whatever scenarios it is. So the temperature means you need much water to produce the same thing. Whereas again, the purpose is that we produce much more with much less. So water scarcity is increasing at an alarming rate. And unfortunately, the region, the MENA region or the NENA region, gonna be one of those countries, those regions that's gonna have a huge problem in terms of agriculture. The reason behind it, it's really the scarcity of water, but also the increase of the other sectors. So agriculture right now is using 80% of the water, but in the future, that 80% is going to go much more lower because other priority, high priority sector will require that water. When we look at the data in the Arab region, not the MENA region, but the Arab region, for example, you could see again that food and nutrition insecurity, it's really increasing and it's affecting millions of people because of water scarcity, because of climate change, let alone the conflict that we mentioned earlier. So in the region, we have about over 60% of the region people that live in areas that are high surface water stress. And Dr. Adel brought us the numbers and clarified the numbers that are used to call a place water stress or another denominator. We have about 70% of the region GDP that is generated in areas with high to very high surface water stress, compared to the global average of about 22%. So we are about 3 times to 3.5 times higher in terms of water stress than the global average. The cost of poor water quality in the region ranges between 0.5% to 2.5% of GDP. And that's money and the resources that we could use for other areas like education and health and others. And the MENA region has the greatest expected economic loss from climate-related water scarcity that is estimated 6 to 14% of our GDP by 2050. So definitely the region has a huge water scarcity issues, and the total water productivity is only half of the world average. We have issues in terms of quality as well of water, not only quantity. So we have the quantity issues, but we have also the quality issues. We have problems as well with salinization and solidification of certain land and waters. So here in this slide, what I want to clarify is that really the other big threat that we have to keep in mind is that as soil becomes drier, they're more vulnerable to desertification. Desertification threatens 25% of the earth land, and it has a cost about $42 billion every year. And just to give you an analogy, that's about the money that the developed countries have promised in COP26. They have promised that they're going to provide about $40 billion for helping with climate change adaptation, particularly for the least and middle income countries. So desertification threats per se make us lose about that money on every year. The dry land contains over 35% of the total global salt packing soils, or about 831 million hectares. And we have to keep in mind that, again, salinization, it's one of the issues that happens because of climate change, because of degradation, and because of low quality of water. All of this to tell you that soil degradation is expensive, as water scarcity and climate change is very expensive. But what does FAO do in MENA? I want to start with a video that explains a little bit our work in FAO on the NENA region, and then I'll come back.
Do you hear me, Dr. Asman?
Can you hear us? Can you hear the
No,
video?
no, now we can. Yes, okay, please,
So I have to
please, you
share
have
with you.
about, we lost you for about 3 minutes, I think.
Let me.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear it now?
Oh, yes, yes, loud and clear. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, the video is clear.
So let me go back to the presentation.
Please.
Then I hope that if you can see it. Oh, is that down? That's not the presentation. So let me then, I'm sorry. My apologies. I hope you can see I'm gonna bring back my screen. So hopefully that you could see the presentation. No? And I have to go back and my apologies. So basically now I'm moving into what do we do for agriculture for the NENA region in FAO. And what I wanna share with you, it's mostly some programs that have been particularly done for the region. I have a number of them that I wanna just remind you of their importance and maybe give you a few examples that we can use to highlight what FAO is doing in the NENA region as a whole. And for some reason, I can't see my slides, whereas I have my presentation already. Okay, bear with me, it won't be long. Yeah, here we go, now we can see it. So basically, FAO has a number of programs that are addressing the dryland at large, particularly in the region. So we have different programs around soil conservation and fertility management. We have many around increase the awareness on access to technologies and innovation. Other programs include agroecology technologies or forest and landscape restoration mechanism, and so on and so forth. We have the WASAC program, which is the Water Scarcity Initiative, that actually started from the region and then became global. Maybe I want to bring forward two examples that are very specific and maybe quite important for this meeting and this discussion. The first one is a program called Dryland Sustainable Landscape, a sustainable forest management impact program that is in partnership with JEF, IUCN, World Bank, UNCCD, World WWF, and the WOCAT. And this called for a critical action and means to sustainably manage the available water resources in the dry areas. We are covering 11 countries, and some of them are in Africa and some in Asia. And also the expected results are very high, both in terms of carbon sequestration, but mostly in terms of restoration of dry land in those countries. The second program that I want to bring forward is towards a global program on sustainable dry land agriculture. And it's a program that started out of QUAG meeting. And the objective of this program is to improve food and nutritional security, livelihood and environment sustainability in dry land again. And this covers a number of countries and number of agri-food systems. Maybe with that, a segue to what we do in general, how FAO is deciding the way forward. And the way forward for us, and my colleague, Dr. Abdi Hakim mentioned it at the beginning, is that we have a new strategic framework for the next decade starting this year, 22 to 31. And the whole strategic framework is around transformation of agri-food system. There is a recognition now of UN Food System Summit last year that agri-food system go beyond really the food and the agriculture only. And the agri-food system should not include only the producers. It is include all the sectors from infrastructure to health to environment to the consumers. As I always say, we could survive without a phone, but we cannot survive without food. So food and water, of course. So that's where we are putting our narrative around increasing the efficiency, the inclusiveness, and the nutrition value of our agri-food system by moving towards four betters: a better production, a better nutrition, a better environment, and better life. And what is very clear in FAO strategic framework is that to get to these four betters and to get to agri-food systems that are more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable, we do need science, technology, and innovation. And that's where we developed our science and innovation strategy that was approved last June by our governing body, by the council. Right now, we are finalizing the action plans at the regional level. And of course, both Africa and the MENA region are very important when we talk about dry land, but also there are dry land in the other regions that are very important for us. And hence, we are developing very specific programs for those regions. So the science and innovation strategy, it's really to help the country members, the 194 member states, to how they can use better science, technology, and innovation. And we are doing so by really supporting them in strengthening the science and evidence-based decision-making, which is very much needed. And we see a huge difference between North and South in that perspective, but also helping them to have more accessibility to innovation and technology. And this is where universities like Ain Shams is very important, because by providing to do better in terms of decision-making based on science, to increase accessibility, it happens when we work very closely with knowledge generator universities, people that are forming the youth that can help us in the future, again, universities and research institutions. And the third pillar of our strategy, it's really to reinforce our capacity as an organization, and that includes partnership to serve better the 194 members. To close, we have the Science and Innovation Forum coming up from the 17th to the 21st of October. This forum, it's organized in combination with the World Food Forum, which is a youth-led week, and the Investment Forum. So we have the youth, we have science, technology, and innovation, and we have investment within the same week, talking about how could we really transform our agri-food system to meet our sustainable development goals and global development agenda, and particularly to reduce inequalities between South and North. So I know that you have lots of young people in the room. I hope that many of them going to join us. As a matter of fact, we have a research transformation challenge that is part of both the forum and the World Food Forum. So I hope that many of you will look it on. With that, I wanted to really to close with a positive note. A note that mostly to say that today more than ever, we need positive thinking, and we need science, technology, and innovation to help us do better. We recognize that we are really deeply in trouble because of climate change, because of us humans, as many of you said it. But we need now to really harness the technologies that we have, innovation that we have, knowledge that we know. We need to work more together, and we need to act right away. We cannot wait for the North to finance it. We cannot wait for the Development Bank to tell us, go ahead and include this variety or this crop or this agri-food system. We need our policymakers to understand this is a very turning point in history, whereby we could fail all of us or we could win all of us. So I think really the developing world need to act, and need to act by investing more in science, technology, and innovation, and in investing in young people. So I think today more than ever, we need to work and we need to act and we need to think about the farmer and the people that are in conflict region that have no other choices. Us as people sitting here, we are very privileged to be in this position, but we have also a lot of responsibility to make change. And I hope that change will show very clearly in COP27 coming to Egypt in few months. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Esmahan. I like your last slide with birds flying, but I hope they will land well, because we may fly, but we need to land in a safe mood. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive vision for the scientific aspects and research and development and innovation of FAO. Wish you all the best in your next meeting, because this will be very important. It will be before COP27, and I hope that you can bring the results of this meeting to the COP27, inshallah. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye. I hope you stay with us for some time if you can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And it's really nice to see Dr. Sirajuddin healthy
Great.
and happy. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Colleagues, I think now we have very short time, and then we start. Professor Lal Rutan will start the session on the 15th, means الساعة 3, and now we are 2:47. Then if somebody would like to stretch his leg or whatever, but we'll be back here. It's a pleasure to have Professor Lal Rutan. Portugal signing fin, Dr. Okay. We will have a small ceremony here with the president of Ain Shams University. We'll sign a protocol, and then after that, if you can catch coffee. Usually we want to give you just a candy with a seed of coffee, then you can eat it directly where you are sitting. No need to go anywhere. Yeah, chill, لا قدام شوية. So just a second. We'll signing ceremony. It will take very short time. Then طب بس فين السيد رئيس الجامعة لازم يكون موجود. ما محتاج عندكم. طب حط العلم بتاع الجامعة حاجة بتوع علم ورا. طب ده إيقاع ده مش كده؟ يعني عشان بس نشارككم في الحاصل ده. ده توقيع ما بين المركز الدولي للزراعة في المناطق الجافة الإيكاردا مع معهد الدراسات العليا للمناطق الجافة في جامعة عين شمس. بيمضيه السيد المدير العام للمنطقة لكل السي جي اي ار الأخ العزيز علي أبو سبع، ومع الأستاذ الدكتور أسامة البحيري، وبإندوسمنت من السيد رئيس الجامعة.
مش قادر اتابع التوكس على البعيده اللي هناك، بس قلت لو انا جيت اتكلم من هنا هعرف اتكلم.
حاول اظبطها شويه
اللي هناك لا دي يا بنتي دي كويسه.
دي كويسه اوكي.
بس يرجعوا لانه كانت تيجي الساعه 3 اليوم اقل من 7 دقائق. كان كويس. كان ممتاز.
عندي ريجستريشن ديسك، عندي ريجستريشن تحت قدامنا الناحية التانية.
التوقيع الثاني ده عبارة عن بروتوكول للتعاون بين الاي دي دي سي والاري. الاي دي دي سي اللي هو هيئة الامر اللي قايم بتنظيم هذا المؤتمر، ومعهد المناطق القاحلة في جامعة عين شمس.
السلام عليكم. دكتور اسماعيل، السلام عليك. عاطف سويلم من
دكتور عبد الغني مش هنلحق بروفيسور بلال بوتانا يبتدي كمان 5 دقايق. طيب والدكتور الشاعر كمان تحفظ عليه. ازيك؟ اهلا، سعدة بيك. تسلم.
كويس ان كان في بدله هناك وبتاع دايما جاست ان كيس. I get straight من العالمين
يا نهار أبيض. أنت في العالمين بعد المارينا ولا؟
المارينا نفسها.
المارينا نفسها.
بوابة 4
تمام.
من فترة طويلة أكثر من 25 سنة يعني.
قديمة.
فالمهم عايز هابي إن أنا جيت طبعا يعني. شكرا، تدريبات عظيمة جدا ما شاء الله، اهتمام كبير وجريت
أنا بس كان مهم التفاعل ده يتم. اللي أنا استغرب له الحضور.
النهارده السبت.
وتستفيد. السبت ما
أنا I really don't know. أنا برضه استغربت.
الناس أجازاتك في الجامعة لسه ما ابتدتش.
الجامعة لسه ابتدت.
فالأعضاء التدريس كلهم مزوغين كلهم في السبت.
الجمعة والسبت عشان كده أنا بس it went well. والأهم من ده كله إن حضور قوي كل البارتنرز everywhere يعني. الحمد لله. طيب أنا عندي delegation الأسبوع ده كله من الجلوبال ليدرشيب بتاع CGIR.